Thank you, Peg, and thank you, Karen's friends, for coming out tonight. Portland is such a great book city, and I know you have a lot of choices for your literary events, so thanks for coming out today. I'm going to be reading an older short story that was published in a literary journal that is no longer around. The story, which is called This Great Love, is still available as an ebook, as a single. And it's one that I have never read out loud before, so I'm kind of excited to share it with all of you. As the title suggests, it is about love and the strange twists and turns that love can take. Love found Prudence on the very same Tuesday that Mrs. Barbadeau in A12 suffered a heart attack. At the ungodly hour of 5:55 a.m., sirens ripped through the neighborhood, wrenching Prudence from dreamless sleep. Red and white lights flashed across her ceiling. She got out of bed, put on gray and tattered slippers to match her gray and tattered bathrobe, shuffled to her bedroom window, and pulled aside the curtains, just a sliver, enough to see, but not enough to be seen. Parked crooked against the curb, an ambulance blocked the northbound lane, though no one but Prudence seemed to care. Her fingers twitched the curtains. She pushed her shoulders straight and gathered a trembling breath. She'd count to 6, and then march out her front door, straight to the driver, and give him a piece of her mind. Certainly there was no need for such rude behavior. Certainly they could park straight and close to the curb so that cars could pass without trouble. Certainly they didn't need to use such loud sirens and bright lights this early in the morning. But before she could start counting, 3 EMTs pushing a gurney came into view. And Prudence recognized Mrs. Barbadeau by her round shape and dark skin, and wasn't at all surprised that she was the one they were taking away. People were always tramping in and out of A12 at all hours, day and night, and what a ruckus. Thumping music and clinking glassware, loud conversations and explosive laughter. Life is a fiesta, mija, Mrs. Barbadeau had told her once when they passed in the hall, and Prudence reminded her of the building's quiet hours. Mrs. Barbadeau had also said that you must embrace life while you can. You must live it full and loud. But Prudence knew that nothing good ever came from such debauchery and decadence. And here was her proof. The paramedics lifted Mrs. Barbadeau into the back of the ambulance, slammed the doors shut, and drove away. Prudence started to pull the curtains closed again. But the first bright streaks of dawn gave her pause. Pink and purple and shimmering orange, bleeding over rooftops and spilling through the gray streets and into her window, she pushed the curtains wider. A ray of burnished gold splashed through the glass and frolicked across her forearm, setting her pale blonde hairs aflame. And how wondrous, she thought. How incredibly marvelous. The clock radio on her nightstand read 6:45 a.m. exactly. Since that morning, Prudence has become convinced that there is most definitely a God and no such thing as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. We only need to be paying close attention to recognize the direction the universe wishes us to take. When Prudence thinks back over the course of her life, she has no other choice but to believe in destiny. Because had certain events played out in a completely different order, she might have gone on living her entire life without consequence, lonely and alone. If her parents hadn't died one right after the other, then the bank would never have taken the house and Prudence wouldn't have been forced to move into the Park Tower apartments. And if she hadn't moved into the Park Tower apartments, then she wouldn't be living next door to Mrs. Barbadeau, whose late-night revelries had most certainly brought about her untimely collapse, which in turn brought the ambulance. And if not for the ambulance, Prudence's natural circadian rhythm would have gone uninterrupted, and she would have slept soundly until exactly 9 a.m., as she had every day before this one. And if she had slept until 9 a.m., she would have never opened the curtains, never watched the sunrise, and never seen the man with his hair parted perfectly down the middle walk past her window at the exact moment she was marveling at the light and shadows playing across her arm. And though he tried to make it seem a small thing and unimportant, a quick turn of his head and then face forward again, a glance and nothing more, Prudence noticed. And she felt it, too. A flicker, a jolt, a terrifying but not altogether unpleasant feeling of falling from a great height, and unlike anything she had ever felt before. She watched him from her window until he disappeared around a corner. She did not know where he had come from, or where he was going, or whether she would ever see him again. She knew only this: they were supposed to be together. She belonged with him, and he with her. Theirs would be the kind of love she had dreamed of as a little girl and stopped believing in after Simon Summers stole her innocence in the back of his father's station wagon, laughing when she cried and leaving her in a Wendy's parking lot to find her own ride home. The kind of love you could wait and search and pray for your entire life and still never find. And yet, somehow her great love had appeared by destiny or miracle or the perfect alignment of planets, and it mattered very little that she did not know his name and he did not know hers. They had from now until forever to work out the details. At 5:55 a.m. the next day, Prudence woke naturally, without any alarm, her circadian rhythm adjusting to love. She showered, dressed, ate breakfast, and was waiting at the window, the curtains pulled halfway open by 6:30 a.m. At 6:45 a.m. exactly, he appeared, and Prudence had 2 minutes from her apartment to the corner of Broadway to study him through the glass. His suit was a slightly darker shade of brown today, but he carried the same black briefcase in his right hand and wore the same navy blue tie and a Windsor knot and parted his hair the same straight down the middle. His jacket was too big in the shoulders, but his slacks were pressed and creased and his shoes polished to gleaming. He walked slightly hunched, and if someone veered too close, he shuffle-hopped to one side to avoid brushing against them. He never waved, or tipped his head, or spoke to the people he passed. Eyes forward, he marched, and marched, bobbing his head in perfect rhythm with his stride. He walked with the quick step of a man who has someplace important to be, a man with purpose. This morning, his steps did not falter, and his eyes did not dart. He turned the corner and out of sight without a single gesture of love. Prudence pressed her hand to the cool glass and smiled. He was shy, something Prudence understood very well. She gathered her knitting basket, moved the rocking chair from its usual place in front of the television into a ray of sunlight, and settled down to watch the people outside her window. As she watched, her fingers flew, a flurry of yarn and needles, a coming together, a beginning. Men in suits and women in heels talked on cell phones. A mother pushed a baby stroller. A pack of teenagers wearing backpacks and matching uniforms jostled by, shoving each other, laughing and talking. A homeless man shuffled to the corner, bus stop. 2 women in lycra jumpsuits speed walked around the block, passing in front of Prudence's window several times. 3 large dogs dragged a ponytailed blonde toward the park across the street. Every day these people were here, whether or not Prudence opened her curtains to see them. So many hearts beating, so many lives weaving together and apart, so many words jettisoned into the silence. Yesterday, the walls were too thin, the space between her and them too narrow, the balance she'd struck too fragile. Remarkable how one glance changed everything, how suddenly bold love had made her. She wanted to push open the front door, sing and spin and dance in the streets and tramp through rose gardens while little birds flitted alongside her, spreading her joy with their feathers. She wanted and wanted and wanted, the whole world expanding, stretching possibility. Her fingers moved faster, transforming the blue-gray yarn into a scarf that would complement perfectly his navy blue tie. Prudence knitted and waited and watched and wanted, and finally at exactly 4:15 p.m. he came around the corner going the opposite direction. She held her breath as he passed in front of her window and released it in a rush when he was out of sight again. Just like earlier that morning, he came and went without acknowledging what was growing between them. But Prudence wasn't worried. She would wait by the window as long as it took, days, weeks, years if she had to, for him to make up his mind and choose love, choose her. Thank you.